Port Kestrel floated in the dark like a city that had forgotten gravity was optional. Long metal arms stretched out from its center, each holding docks, markets, repair bays, and customs halls. Lights of different colors marked different species' territories, rules written in symbols most visitors never learned to read. It was a place built for exchange, not comfort. Elias Marr stepped off the shuttle with a single bag slung over his shoulder. He walked with the calm pace of someone who did not want to attract attention. Humans were not rare here, but they were still watched. Some species stared openly. Others avoided looking at him at all. Elias had come for one reason only. He needed a ship. Not a warship. Not a fast courier. Just something small, dependable, and legal enough to travel beyond charted lanes. He had spent years saving credits, fixing machines for people who never asked where he came from or where he planned to go next. Now he was ready to leave known space behind. The ship market occupied one of the largest arms of the station. Rows of vessels rested in magnetic cradles, each tagged with glowing data panels. Some were sleek and organic, grown rather than built. Others were sharp and angular, like tools that did not care who held them. A tall, thin alien broker approached him. Its skin shimmered faintly, like oil on water. A translation band around Elias's wrist warmed as it activated. "Human buyer," the broker said. "Purpose of purchase?" "Exploration and personal transport," Elias replied. "One passenger, maybe two." The broker's eyes flickered. "Two is unnecessary for your stated function." Elias shrugged. "Options matter." They walked together down the line. The broker explained prices, fuel types, and restrictions. Elias listened carefully, asking simple questions. He did not pretend to understand what he didn't. That habit had kept him alive more than once. They stopped in front of a modest ship. It was not beautiful, but it was solid. Thick hull plates, standard drive, a design that favored repair over speed. "This model meets your needs," the broker said. "Includes maintenance package." Elias nodded. "What kind of maintenance?" The broker gestured, and a second figure stepped forward. At first glance, Elias thought it was another tool or machine. The being was small, with pale skin that reflected light instead of absorbing it. Its limbs were thin but steady, its eyes large and dark. It wore a simple harness with embedded interfaces. "This is a support unit," the broker said, "assigned to the vessel, ship systems, diagnostics, and long-term efficiency." The being stood silently, hands folded, eyes lowered. Elias frowned slightly. "It's alive?" The broker tilted its head. "It is sentient, yes. Optimized for support roles." The word sat badly with Elias. "Does it have a name?" The broker paused, clearly processing the question. "Designation?" "Trell." Elias turned to the smaller being. "Is that what you want to be called?" Trell looked up, surprised. The pause was long enough that the broker shifted in place. "Yes," Trell said softly. The voice was clear, careful, as if each word was chosen from a limited supply. "That is acceptable." Elias looked back at the broker. "You said the maintenance package is included. Does that mean Trell comes with the ship?" "Yes," the broker replied. "Ownership transfer is standard." "Ownership," Elias repeated. The broker's tone cooled. "This is common practice. There is no additional cost." "That's not the problem," Elias said. Around them, buyers and sellers continued their business. No one seemed interested in the conversation, yet Elias felt the weight of invisible attention. He crouched slightly so he was closer to Trell's eye level. "Do you get a choice in this?" Trell hesitated. "Choice is not required." "That wasn't my question." The broker stepped forward. "Human, you are delaying a simple transaction." Elias stood up. "Then maybe it shouldn't be simple." He turned back to Trell. "Do you want to go with this ship?" Trell's fingers tightened together. I am assigned. My function is to ensure vessel performance. Do you want to? Elias asked again, more gently. The translation band hummed as it struggled with intent rather than words.
Do not know how to answer, Trell said. No buyer has asked.
He felt something shift inside him. Not anger, but a quiet firmness. I'm not buying a person, he said. I'm buying a ship. The broker's skin rippled in irritation. Your species often complicates efficient systems. Maybe, Elias replied, but this one feels broken. The broker activated a data panel. Support units are legally classified as contractual assets. They are protected, maintained, and... Do they get paid? Elias interrupted. The broker paused. They are sustained. Do they get to leave? Leaving would compromise their survival. Elias looked at Trell. Is that true? I have been told that autonomy results in failure. Told by who? By all prior handlers. Elias exhaled slowly. That doesn't mean it's true. Human, if you do not accept the standard package, you may choose another vessel. Elias considered the ship again. He liked it, but not enough to ignore what stood in front of him. Show me the full contract, he said. The broker hesitated, then complied. A long stream of symbols and translated text appeared in the air. Elias scanned it carefully. He wasn't a lawyer, but he had learned how systems hid things in plain sight. Minutes passed. Then he saw it, a single clause, buried deep, poorly translated. Something about sentient contractual assets and termination conditions. Stop, Elias said. Go back. The broker adjusted the display. This, Elias said, pointing. What does this mean exactly? The broker's eyes flickered faster. That clause is obsolete. That's not an answer. It allows termination of assignment under specific circumstances, the broker admitted, but it is never invoked. Why not? Because it is inefficient. Elias smiled faintly. Funny. Humans say the same thing about kindness. He turned to Trell. Did you know this clause exists? Trell shook their head. I was not informed. Would you like to read it? Elias asked. Trell looked uncertain, then nodded. Elias adjusted the display so Trell could see. He waited patiently while Trell read, eyes moving slowly, carefully. I qualify, Trell said after a long moment. Sentient. Self-aware. Capable of independent decision-making. Sounds like a person to me, Elias said. The broker's voice grew tight. Human. Invoking this clause will require review. Time. Attention. That's fine, Elias said. I'm not in a hurry. The broker studied him. Why do this? Elias thought for a moment. Because if I leave without asking, I'll still be carrying this conversation with me. And I don't want that kind of cargo. Silence settled between them. Finally, the broker deactivated the display. Very well. Review will be initiated. Trell looked up at Elias, something new in their expression. Not joy. Ah. Not fear. Something like cautious light. Why? Trell asked quietly. Elias met their gaze. Because no one should be treated like an accessory. The station lights hummed. Somewhere, a ship launched. Somewhere else, another deal was made without questions. But in that small space between a human, an alien, and a contract no one expected to be read, something had already changed. Elias waited patiently at a quiet corner of the docking hall. The station was always alive with movement, but he had learned to find spaces where the bustle felt distant, almost like a memory. Trell stood nearby, their posture hesitant but alert, observing everything with careful curiosity. It was strange, Elias thought, how someone, or something, could be both so small and so overwhelming at the same time. Trell seemed to notice everything, storing it silently like a library of living observations. The broker had left to consult higher authorities about the clause Elias had invoked. Meanwhile, Elias had nothing but time, and he did not mind. He had learned long ago that patience was often the sharpest tool a person could carry. Trell shifted slightly, glancing up at him. Their eyes, so large and dark, seemed almost liquid in the station's artificial light. "You don't look like the kind of buyer who waits," Trell said softly. The voice had an odd musical quality, gentle but precise. "I'm not just buying a ship," Elias replied. "I'm buying the chance to do the right thing." He tried to keep his tone casual, but Trell could sense the conviction in his words. It wasn't loud or angry. It was steady, like a current moving under calm water. Trell tilted their head, a gesture that Elias could not interpret, but he sensed it was more than curiosity. "Right thing?" they repeated. "Your species values choices over efficiency?" Elias smiled faintly. "Sometimes. Not always. But I've learned that a system is only as strong as the choices it allows." The alien blinked slowly, processing the words. "No one has asked me about my choices," Trell admitted. "I've followed instructions my whole life, every decision made for me by others. Even small preferences were ignored." Elias nodded. "And yet you've learned, adapted, survived. That says a lot more than any instructions ever could." Trell's lips parted slightly. "Survival, yes, but independent decision is unknown." They hesitated. "I am uncertain." "Good," Elias said. "Then you'll learn it with me." A soft chime rang through the docking hall, indicating that communication channels had opened. The broker returned, flanked by 2 representatives from the station's administrative authority. They moved with precise, formal grace, clearly trained to project authority. Their eyes flicked to Trell and then to Elias, assessing him silently, as though he were a puzzle they had not been prepared for. "Human Elias Marr," one of them said in a smooth, neutral voice. "You have invoked an obsolete clause governing the autonomy of sentient support units. This review requires explanation and verification of intent." Elias nodded calmly. "I want to ensure that Trell can decide for themselves. I will respect their choice. I need only to confirm that they understand what this means." The representative's eyes narrowed slightly. "Have you considered the risks? These units are optimized for function, not autonomy. Decisions outside their programmed parameters may cause harm to themselves or others." Elias glanced at Trell. "Are you willing to take that risk?" Trell hesitated, then looked down at their hands.
"I do not know."
"But curiosity is strong." "Then that is the choice," Elias said. The representatives exchanged a brief silent communication. One finally said, "Very well, verification will proceed." "You will remain in the station until all procedures are complete. This may take some hours." Elias inclined his head. "That is acceptable." Trell looked at him, a spark of something unspoken in their gaze. You make it easier to consider unknown things," they said. Elias shrugged. "Sometimes all it takes is someone asking a question." The representatives departed, leaving them alone again. Trell studied him quietly. "Your species acts strangely. You do not seek efficiency above all else." "Efficiency is useful," Elias said, "but people are more than usefulness. Even you. That's why I waited." Trell's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. "Waiting for me?" "For both of us." Elias replied, for the right moment to act. They spent the next hours together quietly, observing the station. Trell was fascinated by the simplest things. A small child running after a drone, a vendor balancing trays of glowing fruit, a starship docking at an angle that should have caused alarms but didn't. Each observation was carefully catalogued in their mind, like notes in a journal. Elias watched them, learning too. He realized that Trell's curiosity was unlike any human curiosity he had encountered. It was methodical, careful, and endlessly observant. Humans often rushed to conclusions or acted on impulse. But Trell held back, measured the environment, and waited for patterns to reveal themselves. Finally, the verification process began. The administrative team returned with several instruments, mostly analytical and non-invasive. One device emitted a faint hum, scanning Trell for biological and cognitive markers. Another measured responses to hypothetical scenarios. Trell remained calm, responding to each test with care and attention. The representatives observed closely. The unit shows no signs of stress beyond normal parameters, one said. Cognitive responses indicate awareness of self and environment. Ethical reasoning is present at a level sufficient for autonomous decision-making. Then it is verified, the other representative concluded. The unit may choose freely. The human who initiated this review is permitted to continue the transaction as a cooperative arrangement, not ownership. Elias exhaled, a quiet relief passing through him. He turned to Trell, whose eyes shone faintly in the station's lights. You can choose, he said simply. Trell blinked, then looked around the docking hall, taking in the bustling crowd, the ships, the lights, the endless machinery. I choose to stay with you, for now. Elias smiled. Good. That's all I ask. The broker returned, clearly discomfited. Human, this arrangement is unprecedented. You are not required to follow any standard protocols. You assume full responsibility for the unit. I will, Elias said firmly. Very well, the broker said, stepping back. Then you may proceed with the purchase of the vessel as an independent operator. Elias completed the paperwork, while Trell watched, absorbing every detail. When it was finished, he handed Trell a small key-like device. This is for the ship, he said. It's yours as much as it's mine. We operate together, equally. Trell studied it, turning it over in their hands. Together, they said softly. Elias nodded. Yes, together. When they finally stepped toward the ship, a small crowd of station visitors and traders observed quietly. Whispers spread through the docking hall. A human had freed a sentient unit. Some were impressed, some confused, some skeptical. But Elias did not care. What mattered was the choice, the agreement, and the trust between him and Trell. They arrived at the ship. It was simple, practical, but solid. Elias ran his hand over the hull, checking for minor scratches and maintenance issues. Trell followed, pointing out minor adjustments, optimizations, and details Elias had overlooked. You notice everything? Elias said, smiling faintly. You taught me to watch, Trell replied, and to consider choice. That's what people do. They make mistakes, but they learn. They notice, they adjust. You can too. As the sun of the nearby star glinted off the ship's surface, the docking bay doors opened. Elias felt a surge of anticipation, not fear, not excitement, but a quiet certainty that the next step would matter. Ready? He asked. Trell nodded. Yes. For the first time, I am ready to decide. They entered the ship together. Elias initiated the startup sequence while Trell monitored every system, not as an assistant, but as a partner. Lights glowed across the control panels, engines hummed, and the familiar vibration of a starship preparing for launch filled the small cabin. Outside, the station's automated sensors recorded the unusual arrangement. a human and a sentient support unit, operating a ship as equals. The data would travel across the station's network, creating anomalies, patterns to be studied by other traders and administrators. Inside, Elias and Trell prepared for the journey. He felt the weight of responsibility, yes, but also the lightness of doing what felt right. He glanced at Trell, who was already scanning charts and calculating optimal launch vectors. "You like this?" Elias asked. "I understand it," Trell said, "and I am curious." "That's enough," Elias replied. Curiosity is the best reason to start. With a soft hum and a final check of the systems, the ship lifted off from Port Kestrel, leaving behind the station, the docks, and the brokers who thought they had control. Outside, space stretched endlessly, vast and open. For the first time, Elias felt the full weight of possibility, not just for exploration, but for companionship, trust, and shared choice. Trell looked out the viewport, eyes wide and thoughtful. Space is vast.
"Yes," Elias said, "and we're free to see as much of it as we want."
For a long moment, they watched the stars. Then, with a gentle press of the control panel, Elias set the ship on course beyond charted lanes. He did not know what awaited them, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. This journey was different. It was not just a ship leaving a station. It was the start of something neither human nor alien had tried before. They traveled together, not master and subordinate, not buyer and asset, but equals, sharing the vast unknown. And for the first time, Elias realized that the adventure ahead was not about discovery of planets or stars. It was about understanding the life beside him and the choices that made them both truly free. Hours passed, space stretched endlessly. Outside, the stars seemed almost to recognize their unusual arrangement, twinkling with faint approval. Inside, Elias and Trell shared quiet conversation, pointing out details, comparing observations, and learning the rhythm of each other's thoughts.
"I've never
been asked to choose," Trell said quietly, almost to themselves. "And now you have," Elias said, "and you did well." Trell's eyes reflected the starlight. "We are partners," they said. "Yes," Elias agreed, "partners." And as the ship glided through the infinite darkness, the first chapter of their journey together had begun. Two beings, human and alien, learning not only the universe but each other, discovering that freedom and friendship could exist even in the vast silence of space. The ship floated in the silent void between stars, carrying Elias and Trell further from Port Kestrel than either had been before. The familiar hum of engines filled the small cabin, steady and calming. Outside, starlight stretched in all directions, a glittering map of infinite possibilities. Elias leaned back in his chair, hands folded on his lap, eyes tracing the distant light. He had crossed many borders in his life, but this was different. This was not just space. It was freedom, choice, and trust in equal measure. Trell moved through the cabin silently, checking systems, adjusting panels, and observing the display screens. Each motion was precise and measured, almost elegant. But Elias could see the curiosity beneath it. The alien was learning fast, interpreting not only the ship's functions, but also the subtle patterns of human thought and decision. "You notice everything," Elias said, finally breaking the quiet. Trell paused, looking up. "I have always noticed," they replied. "But now I decide which observations matter." Elias smiled faintly. "That's a big step." Trell tilted their head, considering the words. Big step. Yes. Unfamiliar. Elias nodded. Everything new is unfamiliar. That's why you have to start with questions. Always questions. They spent the first hours in a quiet rhythm, exchanging observations, checking charts, and noting anomalies in their path. Trell pointed out gravitational fluctuations, minor energy signatures from distant ships, and even subtle variations in cosmic radiation that Elias would have missed. He began to realize that Trell's way of thinking was different but complementary. Where he guessed or followed instinct, Trell analyzed, compared, and calculated. Together they created a balance neither could achieve alone.
"Why do you like this?"
Trell asked after a long silence, gesturing toward the endless stars outside. "Space?" Elias repeated. "Because it's honest. It doesn't lie. You can measure it, explore it, and see results. And because it reminds me how small we are, and how much we can still do." Trell studied him. "Small, but capable?" "Yes," Elias said simply. "Even the smallest crew, the smallest ship can change something. Sometimes a lot, sometimes a little. But change is always possible. For a time they floated in quiet companionship, the kind that did not need words to exist. Trell was learning patience, Elias was learning precision, and both were learning how to trust. But, soon, the vastness of space reminded them that freedom came with responsibility. Their first external challenge arrived as a faint signal on the long-range scanner. At first, it was nothing more than a flicker, a small spike in the background noise of the sector. Trell noticed it immediately, pointing to the display.
"Unfamiliar vessel," Trell said. "Pattern indicates non-standard propulsion."
"Unknown origin." Elias leaned forward, examining the readings. Could be a trader, could be a scout, could be a problem. "It approaches," Trell added. Elias nodded. "Let's see what it wants. But keep systems ready." The unknown ship appeared slowly on the viewports, a sleek craft painted in dark tones that reflected starlight. Its movement was smooth, almost predatory, though it carried no weapons visible on sensors. Trell studied it silently, eyes calculating speed, trajectory, and probable intent.
"It is cautious," Trell said. "Not aggressive."
"Yet." Elias exhaled. "Caution is good. We'll meet it on our terms." He tapped a few commands, opening a communication channel. A faint chime indicated the signal was received. A holographic form appeared, flickering in the cabin light. It was humanoid, but clearly not human. Its skin was patterned with metallic streaks, and its eyes glowed faintly in blue. "Identify yourselves," the figure said. Its voice was calm, neutral, but carried authority. Elias straightened. "Elias Marr, independent explorer, no affiliation." "And this is Trell, an autonomous sentient being traveling voluntarily with me." The alien observer paused.
"Unusual. Most human vessels do not carry sentient units as equals."
"That's because most humans are content with ownership," Elias said. "We are not." Trell observed the alien closely.
"Voluntary association, not hierarchy," Trell clarified.
"Yes," Elias said. "You understand." The figure tilted its head.
"Curious. You may continue, but your path enters restricted space.
There are patrols ahead. Deviate or identify yourselves further, or you will be intercepted." Elias nodded. "We understand. Thank you for the warning." The hologram disappeared, leaving a faint residual shimmer. Trell exhaled softly. "Interesting. Not hostile. Yet we are observed."
"Observation is part of space," Elias replied. "Not all who watch want to harm you."
"Some just measure, learn, decide if you're worth knowing." Trell considered this. "Then we must be worth knowing." "Yes," Elias said. "We are." They adjusted the ship's trajectory slightly to avoid patrol routes while maintaining their course. It was a delicate balance, requiring careful calculation, which Trell handled efficiently. Elias was learning to trust the alien not only with the ship, but also with judgment. It was strange, comforting, and empowering all at once. Hours passed with quiet work. Trell monitored systems, ran simulations, and occasionally asked questions about human decisions and ethics. Elias answered patiently, explaining why humans sometimes acted illogically, why mistakes could teach more than success, and why compassion mattered even in calculations. Trell seemed fascinated by this, as if learning morality was as intriguing as learning ship mechanics. At one point, Trell turned to Elias.
You do not fear errors? Elias shook his head. Fear can help sometimes,
but it can also paralyze. I prefer awareness and adjustment. Trell considered this, then nodded slowly. Then you understand potential failure.
Yes,
Elias said. And we adapt together. Their bond strengthened in small ways. Shared meals of simple synthesized food, quiet conversation about stars they could not name, and mutual respect for the choices each made. Trell learned to anticipate human needs, and Elias learned to anticipate Trell's thought patterns. It was an unusual synergy, one neither had expected but both appreciated. The next challenge came unexpectedly. A minor system alert flashed on the control panel. An unregistered asteroid field lay directly in their projected path. Not dangerous for a ship with proper navigation, but enough to require attention. Trell immediately began calculations, running simulations of trajectories, impact probabilities, and energy expenditure. Elias watched, impressed by the speed and precision.
Do it your way, he said. I'll follow.
Trell's eyes widened slightly. You? Trust me fully?
Yes, Elias said. Partnership means trust.
Trell nodded and adjusted the ship's controls. The vessel shifted smoothly, engines responding to the subtle corrections. Elias felt the thrill of control and release at once. He could have done it himself, but the result was better this way. Together they guided the ship safely through the field. Afterward, they both exhaled, the tension leaving their bodies. Elias glanced at Trell.
See, decisions shared make outcomes stronger.
Yes, Trell said softly. I see. The asteroid field passed, but new questions arose. The sector they were entering was poorly mapped. Some regions showed faint energy signatures suggesting other ships or structures, but nothing definitive. Trell suggested slowing down to scan, but Elias argued that speed was important to maintain their trajectory before sensors lost efficiency. They compromised, adjusting speed while running parallel scans. As they approached the edge of the mapped sector, a new anomaly appeared. A small station, partially hidden behind a dense nebula, showed signs of recent activity. Lights flickered, docking clamps extended, and a faint energy trail suggested a vessel had just departed. Someone's here, Trell said.
Yes, Elias said. But the question is, why? They adjusted their course for a safer approach, keeping the ship's profile minimal.
Trell monitored all energy outputs, noting patterns of activity inside the station. Elias watched, fascinated by the alien's ability to translate subtle data into understandable possibilities. Hours turned into a tense observation period. Finally, a decision had to be made. The station could offer information, trade, or shelter, but could also be dangerous. Elias turned to Trell.
We approach slowly.
Observe. Do not engage unless necessary.
Agreed? Agreed, Trell said. They advanced cautiously, the station growing larger on the viewports.
Sensors picked up small movement within docking bays, figures moving, engines starting and lights shifting. Trell calculated multiple scenarios: trade, threat, evacuation. But the data was inconclusive. Elias trusted their judgment. We'll watch and act wisely. That's all any explorer can do. Together, human and alien navigated the edge of the nebula, learning, calculating, and observing. They shared the thrill of the unknown, each aware that space could test them in ways neither had yet imagined. Yet they were not afraid. Together they could face uncertainty, each relying on the other's insight, patience, and integrity, and in that quiet moment, drifting between stars, Elias realized something profound. The journey was no longer about maps, contracts, or exploration alone. It was about partnership, about learning to trust across species, and about the courage to choose freely, even when no one else expected it. As the ship moved closer to the hidden station, both of them understood that the adventure ahead would demand not only skill, but wisdom, empathy, and mutual respect. And for the first time, Elias felt truly ready. The stars stretched on, endless and inviting, as the ship moved forward, carrying two equals into a galaxy that had yet to see what they could accomplish together. The hidden station loomed ahead, partially cloaked by the thick nebula, its lights dim and flickering like a hesitant signal in the void. Elias adjusted the ship's trajectory slowly, careful not to trigger alarms. Trell monitored every energy pulse, every movement, every unusual spike in radiation, translating them into possibilities.
"Whatever is here," Trell said quietly, "it has not noticed us yet. We are unseen, for now."
Good. That gives us time to observe.
"Stay alert. I want to know everything we can before making contact."
The station was old but functional, constructed from plates of dark alloy and reinforced with structural beams that bent against the nebula's pressure. Elias could see docking bays, small cargo hoppers, and the faint glow of lights flickering across the interior. Some sections seemed empty, others held the silhouette of moving figures, their shapes unfamiliar. "Who do you think they are?" Elias asked.
Unknown? Trell said. No registry matches.
Ship design suggests independent operation, possibly civilian or rogue trade. Energy patterns indicate small-scale propulsion. Elias frowned. Rogue traders. Maybe. Or smugglers. Either way, we need to be careful. Approach slowly, sensors active, communication channels ready, but do not broadcast presence unnecessarily. Acknowledged. Calculating optimal trajectory for observation without detection. The ship drifted silently closer, lights dimmed, engines humming quietly. Elias felt the familiar thrill of entering the unknown, a place where the rules of the known galaxy did not fully apply, where observation and intelligence mattered more than speed or firepower. He trusted Trell's calculations completely, which surprised him even as it felt natural. Minutes passed as they scanned the station from multiple angles. Trell pointed out small inconsistencies, energy readings that didn't match visible activity, heat signatures in abandoned docks, and minor fluctuations in the docking clamps.
"Someone left in a hurry," Trell said.
Recent vessel departure, possibly within the last few hours. Systems show no automated override, suggesting manual operation. Interesting, Elias said. Means someone is cautious, or hiding.
Yes, Trell replied.
And likely monitoring their own surroundings as well. We must be doubly cautious. Elias considered the possibilities. This station might offer trade, information, or shelter, but it could also conceal danger. Yet he trusted Trell's judgment, knowing that their calculations and awareness, combined with his own instincts, gave them an advantage many unprepared crews lacked. "Prepare the approach vector for a slow dock," Elias said. "We'll need to match their movements precisely." Trell's hands moved over the control panels, adjusting thrusters, shields, and stabilizers. Elias watched, fascinated by how quickly and intuitively Trell worked. The alien's calculations were precise, efficient, and yet flexible, enough to adapt to sudden changes. It was a form of intelligence that complemented his own, and together they formed a seamless partnership. As they drew closer, the station's automated sensors finally detected them. A warning light blinked on the viewports, followed by a soft chime indicating an incoming communication request. A holographic figure appeared, humanoid but distinctly alien, with dark reflective skin and narrow eyes that glowed faintly in a green hue. "Identify yourselves," the figure said, its voice calm but firm. "State purpose of approach." Elias raised his hand slightly in a non-threatening gesture. Elias Marr, independent explorer. Accompanied by Trell, an autonomous sentient being. We seek observation, trade, and information. No hostile intent. The figure paused, tilting its head. An unusual pairing. Humans rarely travel with autonomous units as equals. Why does this unit accompany you voluntarily?
Because it chooses to. Trell is not my property.
It is my partner.
Affirmative. Choice voluntary.
Partnership confirmed. The figure studied them for a long moment, then spoke again. Proceed with caution. Docking permitted. Compliance with local protocols required. All actions are monitored.
Any attempt to bypass protocols will be met with force.
Understood. Thank you. The communication ended, leaving them to maneuver the ship into docking alignment. Trell guided the vessel with precision, adjusting thrusters to account for the station's irregular structure and the faint currents of the nebula. Elias followed their instructions, trusting completely, aware that hesitation could lead to collision or misalignment. Once docked, they prepared to step out into the station. Trell scanned environmental readings, confirming breathable atmosphere, gravity levels, and minor radiation fluctuations. Elias activated the small artificial gravity field in the ship's cabin, ensuring smooth transition to the station's surface. They moved together through the docking corridor, careful to avoid automated sensors where possible. The station was quiet, except for the soft hum of machinery and distant footsteps echoing in the empty halls. Elias felt the familiar thrill of exploration, an excitement tempered by caution, but never fear. Their first encounter came sooner than expected. A small group of aliens emerged from a side corridor, armed with scanning devices and light tools. They froze when they saw Elias and Trell. One stepped forward cautiously. "Who are you?" the alien demanded. Elias raised his hands in a friendly gesture. "Explorers, independent, no intent to harm. We are here for observation and information." The alien studied them closely, then glanced at Trell. "The unit accompanies you willingly?"
Yes,
Trell said. "Choice voluntary. Partnership confirmed." The alien exchanged a glance with the others, then relaxed slightly. "Curious. Few humans respect autonomy in units. You may proceed, but follow station rules."
Elias nodded. "We will."
"Thank you." The small group moved ahead, allowing them to continue. As they walked, Trell observed everything: the layout of corridors, the placement of security cameras, the minor signs of recent activity. Every detail was noted, every pattern considered. Elias followed, trusting their judgment implicitly. In the central hub of the station, they found a large data terminal, clearly recently used. Lights flickered on the console as Trell approached, interfacing with the system. Elias watched, fascinated, as the alien analyzed the station's logs, communications, and energy readings. "Recent ship departures indicate trade and transport," Trell said.
no significant military presence. Most activity civilian, independent operators.
However, a pattern of avoidance emerges. Certain sectors are being deliberately concealed. Elias leaned closer.
Concealed? From whom?
"Unknown," Trell replied. "Possibly other traders, possibly law enforcement. Patterns suggest deliberate secrecy, but no hostile intent detected. Yet caution required." Elias nodded. "We proceed carefully, but we observe everything. Knowledge is our advantage." War. They spent the next hours exploring, cataloging, and observing. Trell's analytical mind complemented Elias's intuitive understanding of behavior and context. They discovered hidden caches of supplies, detailed star charts, and signs of recent repairs on ships that had clearly visited the station without registration. Each discovery added layers to their understanding of the sector and the station's operations. As they moved deeper into the station, they encountered a small control room overlooking docking bays. Screens displayed live feeds of several ships in the area, along with sensor data for the nebula outside. Trell quickly began analyzing the systems, identifying energy signatures, propulsion types, and potential hazards.
This station has significant observational capabilities, Trell said. They monitor arrivals and departures closely, likely aware of all activity within at least a 50-kilometer radius. Elias nodded thoughtfully. So we're not just visitors. We're being observed. But observation isn't hostility. That's important. Yes, Trell agreed. Observation allows adaptation. We must act accordingly. Elias smiled faintly. Exactly, adaptation. They spent the rest of the day cataloging data, studying ship movements, and mapping hidden sectors of the station. Elias noticed how Trell's curiosity was not just technical. It was social, ethical, and strategic. The alien was learning more than ship systems. It was learning to anticipate, to weigh consequences, and to navigate human-style judgment. By evening, they returned to their ship. The nebula outside glowed faintly with ambient starlight, painting the hull in soft shades of blue and purple. Elias and Trell prepared for departure, careful to maintain the station's protocols while continuing their journey. "Do you feel prepared?" Elias asked, glancing at Trell. "For what?" Trell replied. "For what comes next," Elias said. "Beyond this station?" "Beyond known sectors. Beyond everything we've seen before." Trell considered the question. "Prepared? Yes, we know each other better. We understand partnership. We understand choice. That is sufficient preparation." Elias nodded, impressed. "Sufficient is all we need sometimes." They undocked smoothly, engines quiet, lights dimmed. The station receded into the distance, cloaked partially by the nebula, fading from view. Elias set the ship's course for open space beyond charted lanes toward unclaimed regions of the galaxy. Hours later, drifting past unmarked systems and distant stars, Elias realized something profound. Their journey was no longer simply about exploration or freedom. It was about demonstrating a principle that humanity's strength lay not in force nor in conquest, but in ethics, intelligence, and cooperation. By respecting Trell's autonomy, he had shown that humans could act in ways that inspired trust, partnership, and mutual respect. Trell looked out the viewport, eyes reflecting distant stars. "I have learned much," they said. "And we will continue to learn," Elias replied. "Together." The silence of space stretched before them, but it no longer felt empty. It felt alive with possibility, with discovery, and with the quiet triumph of doing the right thing. They were explorers, not conquerors. Partners, not master and subordinate. And in that partnership, they found freedom, purpose, and hope. As the ship glided through the infinite darkness, Elias and Trell shared a simple understanding. Whatever awaited them in the uncharted regions, they would face it as equals, guided by curiosity, courage, and mutual respect. And in a galaxy full of uncertainty, that partnership was the most powerful force of all. The stars moved past them, distant yet familiar, carrying two beings who had chosen each other freely, who had defied expectation without conflict, and who were ready to chart a path no one else had dared to follow. For Elias, Mar, and Trell, the journey was no longer about ports, contracts, or trade. It was about the future they would navigate together, one choice at a time, in a galaxy that had yet to understand the true power of equality, curiosity, and trust. And so, beyond the nebula, beyond charted maps, beyond the expectations of traders, bureaucrats, and distant civilizations, the ship moved forward. Human and alien, explorer and partner, friend and friend, into a universe full of infinite possibilities,